All right, we are live. Welcome into the Fieldhouse Files live post-game show. I've done one of these after every single Pacers playoff game for the last 2 seasons. What a night. What a game in this game five matchup that unfortunately not enough people saw. It wasn't on true national TV. And I know locally so many fans were upset, frustrated, irate that they didn't even see the finish. You're following along on social media and sorts like that. I'm not even sure where you start with this one. I hate to really start with the on-court incident that really happened post-game. That's going to obviously get a lot of attention, and it took several replays to truly understand some parts of it. It was an emotional series. It was an emotional battle. There's so much history over the last 2 years with these two teams, and it's the Pacers winning in Game 5. It took an overtime session, 119 to 118. They were 7.5 point favorites. They trailed by 20 there in that first half. 33-13 was the tally at one point in that game. It was just a nasty game, especially to start, right? And here the Pacers were finding their way back in this one, consistently just staying with it. So I got to give them a lot of credit for doing so. Appreciate everyone jumping on and joining me here. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel and join me at Fieldhouse Files for a lot more coverage of both the Pacers and the Indiana Fever. Already so many comments here to discuss. Holy smokes, back from the dead. I can't believe what we just saw. Part of me is disgusted the way the Pacers played this game, but another part thrilled to see how they finished as a team. Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, I'm a little bit late here. Being a one-man band, man, you do it all. I write, I post, I edit, I send out, I tweet, I go live here. So that's the apologies there for the delay. Let's go with the ending. First in regulation, because it took that extra session. It looked like the game maybe was out of reach there. And then we saw the big play there late in regulation with Halliburton, 6 in a row. He had the layup, he had the free throws. It was just so impressive what they were able to do just to get back to that point. 103, all even there after it wasn't it Gary Trent Jr. and AJ Green knocked down back-to-back threes in the regulation period. It felt like the game was getting out of hand there. Was 120 left. I have my notes right up here on a secondary screen. So that's what I'm looking at there. And so then they get into overtime, and here they go again. Gary Trent Jr. bangs home 4 3-pointers in a row, finished the night with 8 of them. He had 9 2 games ago, was playing out of his mind, a game-high 33 points to lead the way, which kind of outshined, in many respects, Giannis's night. 30 points, 20 rebounds, 13 assists. A 30-20 triple-double is remarkable. On top of that, a couple steals, 2 block shots. He did have 7 turnovers, though, of note. The Pacers as a team had 13, but then it was Halliburton again late attacking. This is why so many of us are on him when he's not attacking during games, because we see he can get to the basket. We can see him have the and one, and they're late in overtime. What did he do? He sprinted right past Giannis, laid it up there, and scored the game-winning bucket with 1.3 seconds left to finish off the Bucks, to finish off this series. And now they'll turn their attention to the Cleveland Cavaliers. But first, like the Cavs, they get to enjoy a brief break. We do not just yet have the time for when the next game will be. Certainly this upcoming weekend, probably a Saturday start to be determined. But that means they basically have at least 3 days between games. The Cavs swept their series, finishing off the Heat, winning by like 50 again on Monday night. And so this break will be very good for both teams, I think, headed into what will be a competitive, physical second round series. Thanks for everyone for joining me. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments. I'll continue to get through those. Sean says, what did we just witness? I've been a Pacer fan since 2012. It's when I started on the beat. Don't think I've seen one like that. He said the most improbable playoff win. Yeah, it's certainly up there because how poorly they started. That was awful basketball. Their worst half of the season, clearly. 119, 118, the final in that one. That was disgusting. In that first quarter when you're down 33-13 to start the second, and it's just brutal. And then they kept coming back. It was the first time all series they had trailed at halftime as they were down, I think, 47-41. And then it was the third quarter where they were +6. TJ McConnell had his best game of the series, coming on strong there, and was really the only bench player that made a significant impact from a points standpoint, finishing with 18 points. I think 12 of them there were in that second half in particular. Both teams finishing with their starters. And we did see a big shift from a desperate Bucks team with their season on the line. All new starters except for Giannis. I thought that was absolutely notable. Kevin Porter Jr., Gary Trent Jr., AJ Green, and then Bobby Portis in for Brook Lopez. I don't blame them. You got to try anything. But in doing so, they downsized. They leaned more on spacing and threes and less on inside. And so that led me to two unique statistics because of it. As a result, the Pacers were badly outscored from the three-point line, 19 threes to 12. That's a 21-point difference. But on the other side, they won the paint battle, 50 to 38. So that just shows you just with different lineups and what teams want and what they want to emphasize, where their advantage is going to be. But, man, did they turn it over a ton. 20 points off turnovers for the Pacers on 18 giveaways from the Bucks, including 7 by Giannis and 2 costly ones from Gary Trent Jr. As much as he was the player of the game until Halliburton in the final minute, he also essentially cost the Bucks the game with those 2 terrible turnovers. First, throwing it away, that was intercepted, I think, by Nembhard. Nembhard's steal with 17.1 seconds left. And then he just kind of bobbled the ball right near the Bucks bench, and that one's going to really ache at him for certain. Quinn Buckner on the broadcast when they were down 7 with 40 seconds. I've seen crazier things. Boy, he was right. Absolutely. Those of us who've been around the team for so long know this with this group in particular. And Quinn, he has the distinguished honor with championships at every level. So he knows basketball as well as just about anyone out there. Any idea what transpired at the end between Ben and Giannis? Not particularly. Since you brought it up and we went there, I will discuss this. Watched video of the ending, watched video of the interactions. The number one thing that happened post-game, and I don't think the Fox Sports, wow, not Fox, not Bally, it's now FanDuel Sports Network. I don't think they got it on their broadcast that I saw, but after the buzzer sounded, John Halliburton, Tyrese's dad, left his courtside seats, went onto the court about the three-point line, and Giannis was standing right inside of it. He had his big, giant Tyrese flag photo of him and just kind of said something and taunted right in front of Giannis. There's no reason for that. The team won. You move on. You celebrate with the team, with your family and such. And that's why we heard post-game Tyrese talking about, hey, he didn't know what happened, but then watched the video before coming out, which is smart of him. Smart of him to do that because he knows he's going to be asked about it. And said, yeah, my dad's in the wrong. There's no place for that. And you got to leave it to the players and such. So that's issue number one. And so what we saw on camera later was it looked like a friendly exchange between Giannis and John Halliburton. I think it kind of was. But that was after the fact. Maybe John apologized. Maybe Giannis said, hey, emotions, I get it, but come on, you're better than that. I don't know. But there was a first interaction that happened about 3 or 4 minutes before that. That was right before all the skirmishes as well that fortunately didn't end up doing anything. I thought it was really notable, certainly, that the Pacers front office was out on the floor. Notable because they're looking after their guys. They want to make sure nobody is suspended for, say, game 1 or no one gets in a fight or anything like that. And that leads to the question you asked, MK Sinks, and that was what happened with Ben and Giannis. And that was not abundantly clear because Giannis seemed to be wanting to get friendly with everyone in a good way, sincerely. But that was one of them that kind of got a little fiery, certainly. I don't know if Ben said something smart ass. I don't know if Giannis said something, and then Matherin is not going to let that go. I know Matherin's been heated about certain things throughout the series, especially up in Milwaukee, especially with Gary Trent Jr. And so that's where I saw Chad Buchanan and assistant coach Lloyd Pierce reach in and kind of not rip, but grab and pull Matherin out of that. At that point, Kevin Porter Jr. just went berserk and lost his cool, which was ridiculous. James Johnson was stepping in. Trying to remember all the different sequences. I must have watched it 12 different times. A member of security, not the regular security for Ty, was pulling Ty back a little bit, making sure he was staying out of it, which is right. Meanwhile, Joe Smith, the head of executive protection for the Pacers, was in the middle of it, along with a couple more of his members of security, trying to clear the path, get everybody to their different sides, trying to get people away from things here, ultimately. and they did successfully. Kevin Porter Jr. was tamed, and then a little bit later on, Giannis said a couple of things. Had a brief conversation with James Johnson, probably explaining what happened, because James is just trying to create peace. But he was probably unsure, like many of us. What the heck's happening out there? I don't get it. So that was probably 4 or 5 minutes out there. And I should finish up too with Matherin. I thought it was notable. Lloyd Pierce was speaking like a father, it looked like, or a leader to Matherin about whatever just happened. And then you're not going back out there. You go right to the locker room. And after he originally was like, no, I'm good. He clearly was like, yep, all right, whatever. And went to the locker room, which was huge for the Pacers, certainly, because you don't want him messing around and being on the court and just doing something he would regret a little bit later on, even if it was nothing serious. Just there's a time to talk your stuff, and you disposed to the Bucks in Game 5. Now you're on to the next one. That's where your attitude is. You go celebrate with your teammates in the locker room, maybe at a nice dinner later on tonight since it's an earlier game. But unfortunately, I have a feeling that's going to get a lot more attention than the Pacers come back. And then, of course, rightfully so, they're going to talk about what's next for the Bucks and what's next with Giannis, because that is a monster story in the NBA then. So I hope I adequately described that. I'm going to have to go back and watch more of it, but that's what I saw after dozens of replays. Excuse me. Speaker from the dead said, what a freaking ending. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding there. What's up, Greg? Says Gary Trent caught lightning in the bottle, thought he was built for the moment. Then the clock struck midnight and turned into a punt. There you go, man. Yeah, the dude was on a roll. I give him credit. He was a tough guy in this series. I wish the Pacers would have edged up and really zeroed in on him more defensively, because ultimately in this series it was Giannis and it was Gary Trent Jr. Bobby Portis had a big game too. I think 28 points, but that was really it, Greg, right? And so tonight, I mean, we never saw Giannis erupt for a 40-point game in this series. That in large part is why the Pacers are winning in just 5 games. And that's all it took. I thought Giannis would have at least one of those special games when he goes for 50, including 22 visits to the free throw line, something like that. Tonight, almost actually got there 17 times, and he made 11 of them. So nearly 50%. I mean, I think the Pacers would take that. They'd certainly take the 30 points. If you keep Gary Trent Jr. down about 10 points there, you're feeling really good about what you just accomplished and where you're headed. Yeah, everybody's having a similar comment. Bob, wow, what an ending. PJ, what's the story between Hallie's dad and Giannis? I explained that a little bit. Lucas, don't apologize for anything, Scott. I'm still speechless for what we just saw. Yeah, I mean, that was wild. That's why I didn't come on live immediately after the game. First of all, you had that those guys talking. Not even an incident by any means, just guys talking. Wanted to go back and watch as much as that as I can. Then I wanted to get a full scope of the story. And now here we are, and a little bit easier of a night because it is earlier. These are my prime time hours, late at night. So I have no problem with this, and makes for long days when you combine Pacers with Fever, certainly. So I don't mind less Pacer stuff over the next couple of days, as we have Fever Media Day I got to prepare for coming up on Wednesday. So many overtime games this year, and games won in the final 2 minutes. Yeah, I think the latter part is especially true. Thinking back to the final month of the Pacers season, they had so many games in the clutch, which is games within 5 points or less, in the final 5 minutes of games. And they won the majority of those. They won like all but one home game over the last month that really mattered. And that set them up for moments like this, that they didn't throw in the towel, that they didn't think ahead. And we're already looking ahead, I should say, to say Game 6 that would have been Friday night in Milwaukee. You do not want to do that, because then it's a disaster. Assuming you win Game 6, you're going right to Cleveland. You're tired, you're drained, you're exhausted, you're mentally fried. I fully expect for them to take Wednesday off, at least the starters and such. The role players certainly will be in, getting shots up, getting work in the weight room, and starters will probably be in at the St. Vincent Center, but that's for treatment, maybe shoot free throws, watch some film, but nothing physical by any means will be needed for the next day and a half, probably coming off this series. And it also depends when we find out when the start of the next series will be. I got my email open here, so I'm kind of waiting to see when that email will fire in, coming from the league office. Probably at the end of the conclusion of some of the games tonight, because the Pacers plus two other teams could have clinched and finished off their series tonight with 3 wins. So that's something we'll certainly be watching. Again, the Pacers win 119-118. The final. Ooh, there's the email right there. And let me fire off the tweet. It'll start on Sunday. Sunday is the day. And there's my tweet. That's how we do it, man. One man bandit. You got to do everything. So it starts on Sunday. I like that. The only thing I don't like about it, selfishly, is I'm already going to be in Iowa City as Caitlin Clark returns to her alma mater for a Fever preseason game. But now you know, Sunday it is Pacers at Cavaliers to begin the playoff series. That we now know. What we don't know is the time. We don't know the TV network. All that TBD with all that. All right, let me jump back into the comments here. Appreciate the breakdown. Let's keep the train going, says MK. What are one or two things the Pacers can take from the series? Woo, you're trying to do big picture stuff, not just about this game. I think a couple things you can take from this series is the depth. Again, that's what this team is built and takes pride in, is that it might be Jarris Walker and TJ McConnell one night. It might be Obi Toppin and, who else? Ben Shepherd another night. All those certain things. The depth is key. I think Halliburton coming up clutch once again is very important, and to give him that confidence going into the second round. Defense, I think here's the other thing, by the way. Nesmith was not close to 100%, nor was Mathurin. And so to go back to my point earlier, the fact that the Pacers now have extended time off, meaning 4 days, we have 4 days. Yeah. Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays, 4 days between games is significant, certainly for the Pacers. The Cavaliers dominated their series. I think they're doing fine health-wise otherwise. But that is especially important for Nesmith, who's probably going to get a bulk of the workload guarding Donovan Mitchell. Maybe he'll get some action with DeAndre Hunter, for example. And then I think the other thing is I don't think we've talked enough about Miles Turner's impact in this series. You need for that to continue on when you got double bigs. Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, that's going to be very difficult right there. And so I think this series gave them more confidence in their abilities, and I think it gave a lot of individuals renewed confidence here when it matters most. We'll get into the Cavs, that matchup, by the way, MK. We'll get into that later on 4 times. I think the Cavs will have I know the Cavs have the upper hand. I think they'll beat the Pacers. But let's save that for another time and really focus just on this series, this game, and the Pacers finishing on the Bucks. If you trade Giannis, do you go for just picks or do a Jazz rebuild? All right, we can briefly touch on that. I think if you trade Giannis, you're doing a full rebuild. That's what I'm looking for. But I would want one star player that can be the focal point of your team in the meantime. I guess similarly to the Jazz, Lauri Markkanen and such, because in a small market like that, you need that. And so that's what I would look for if something like that does happen. All eyes will be on Milwaukee, certainly, Ray, because of that. PJ's exciting game tonight. The blood pressure could use a couple days to get recalibrated. Yeah, there you go. I think we can all use some time off and a break and rest and relaxation after Pacers and Bucks certainly made it interesting. They won a couple of them big, lost game 4 there up in lost game 3, wasn't it? Man, now my head's spiraling. And then obviously won this game 5 to finish them off. How would you compare Max Strus to Trenton Green? Should we expect to see him hitting threes? Yeah, absolutely. Max Strus can score in a hurry. He's a guy, again, that worries you. Maybe he's been a starter for the Cavaliers. I think Nembhard will probably get a chance at him. I'll have to look back at how they matched up because remember, you got Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell in the backcourt. You also have DeAndre Hunter, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, then Max Strus right there. All guys that can pop off. Every one of those guys could go for 20-plus points. And so the Pacers are absolutely going to have their handful. It's a tough, physical, defensive-minded team. And the challenge, too, I think a little bit, maybe it's a Pacers advantage, is remember, they played the Cavaliers twice over the final 3 games, but for the Cavs, it really didn't mean anything. For the Pacers, they were trying to shore up their seeding. So it was not like it was in the middle of the year or in February where you could really draw more off the tape from those matchups. And then again, can you really gather much from a couple 50-point beatdowns of the Miami Heat in round 1? Not so much. Yes, Sunday, Brian. That's when the series will start over in Cleveland. Derby says Sunday is great, lots of rest. Miles said they were tired. Oh, absolutely. And that's going to happen when you play the style the Pacers want to play, run and gun. Use that to their advantage. And to go back to, I think, MK's question earlier, what can you use to your advantage? It re-emphasizes the importance of fast break points, especially against these slower teams, is they want to get stops. They want to force bad shots, and then they want to grab it off the rim and go. They don't want to grab it out of the net and have to inbound it. Full court pressure might be applied. I could see the Cavaliers trying at times, certainly. I thought it was interesting. Giannis was doing some of that in this game. So that was a little bit surprising, but also you're desperate. This team was on the brink of elimination, so they tried a little bit of everything, including an entire new starting lineup except for Giannis. So there you go. Lucas, any thoughts on Siakam's last 2 games? I felt it's been poor. It's been weaker of the games he's had, tired from defending Giannis. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all of that. I think it's the mental toll of being a leader. I think it's this fast pace. Like, this isn't how he wants to play. He's more of a slower, half-court, methodical player. Giving it to him in the post, give it to him on the high post, and do all those certain things. He is not a player typically that is run and gun and race up the floor and do that type of thing. So I think that definitely has an impact. Then, yeah, he was spending a significant amount of time guarding Giannis, which is just physically exhausting. It's draining and all those sorts of things. And that's why tonight, for example, just 5 of 12, only 10 points. Usually I basically chalk him up good for 20 points per game. He might go for 30, but he's probably going to give you 20 each of those nights. That was not the case tonight, but it didn't have to be because Halliburton took over. I remember tweeting, I think in the third quarter, I was like, hey, look, Pacers, even or within a couple, this is where their all-stars got to turn it on. Whether it's Halliburton or Siakam, one of them have to step up. And ultimately, it was Halliburton scoring, I think, the final 5 points of regulation. And then I want to say the final 6 points of overtime as the Pacers finished the game on an 8-0 run over the final 34 seconds. Just unbelievable. It really was. What else do we got here? Brian, Jerome is the player that scares me. Yeah, Ty Jerome, absolutely. He's a guy that can for sure go off, as we have seen. See, they have so many weapons, and I like them going and getting DeAndre Hunter as well. We'll get into the Cavs a little bit later on, though. Yeah, Jared, Cardiac Kids made their triumphant return. Brian says Pacers need to deal with Cavs' interior defense and rebounding advantage for sure. You're gonna have to be shooting better than I think 12 to 23 from 3-point land. 36%. I'd like to see more like 35 attempts at least. They were at like 27 until overtime, I think, and then added a few more. I really think 35 at least is the magic number there. The Bucks, meanwhile, they threw up 40 and made almost half of them at 19, by the way. Sacramento traded Halliburton for Sabonis. Their GM responsible for this trade deserves to be in prison. I disagree with that. I get why they were doing it. I think their biggest mistake was all these coaching changes. These frequent coaching changes don't make any sense to me. They were finally seemingly about to be a stable program, right? With Mike Brown and getting to the postseason and Domantas Sabonis and all of that. Not anymore. And then today, I think they officially named their interim head coach as Doug Christie as the head coach. I'm not a fan of that, but we'll see. To be determined. And that's one of those, I think, very much you get the read of the locker room. How does Sabonis work closely with him? How does he feel? But the fact that they had all those top draft picks, guards, and then traded them all away, Mitchell, Halliburton, and then the other name escapes me right now. But you had 3 of them right there in the backcourt. Now they have no point guards. So what are you doing there? To me, that's the biggest issue. I didn't mind the trade for either team. That's why so many people were talking about, De'Aaron Fox, thank you, PD. That's why you had so many people talking on both sides. Some saying Pacers won the trade. No Sabonis in the Sacramento Kings. I think it was a fairly even trade. It just depended, what do you value? What do you value? And for the Kings, they had depth at guard with Mitchell, with Fox. Halliburton played the off guard spot more than anything. They didn't have a dependable center on the interior. Trouble is, centers to me are tough to invest a franchise player in, unless you are dominant like Shaq. Meanwhile, Pacers had double bigs. I was over the Turner Sabonis. They really needed to pick one. I thought they were going to pick Sabonis because of his dependability, because of his all-star prowess and that sort of thing. But no, and that's fine. They moved on for Sabonis, and I wasn't exactly surprised. He was growing frustrated with the franchise and the ways things had been going. He had seen several stars, how they were treated, several stars, why they left, Paul George, Victor Oladipo, etc. And so I think the Pacers somewhat got ahead of that. But on top of that, now they got their balance. They got a Midwest guy, which is huge, and they got a guy that wanted to be all in with the franchise. Now, ideally, you wouldn't have had to give him the Supermax, but it turned out his escalated contract did, because he was all NBA. So that hurt the franchise and reduced their money available with the salary cap. If you're Ty, you're making out great, man. You're getting kind of that, you're getting almost this full Supermax. You kind of get that mid Supermax. Either way, you're great. Making $40+ million per year. What are we doing? What are we talking about? Bucks fans want Rivers fired. Man, I think if I am a Bucks fan, I'm just terribly frustrated with everything. They had that change in ownership because they had that weird situation where they have all these owners, and like this guy's the governor for like 3 years, and then this one takes. So I think that's a little bit bizarre and very tough. Then you had the coaching change several times. See, that's why this series is so interesting, right? Because the Bucks made that coaching change last year after the Pacers knocked out the Bucks from the in-season tournament. And that situation just wasn't working. I have no idea why, probably money, but why did Doc Rivers come out of being on the #1 broadcast team, a cush job? You can golf most of the week, fly somewhere on the weekends, you're on ABC or ESPN, and here we go. To come out of retirement for this situation where nothing has broken their way. And part of me empathizes for the Bucks in this situation and Giannis. The other side of it is you kind of asked for it in trading away Jrue Holiday. Now, I get they kind of needed to make a move, especially to sign Giannis to an extension and that whole thing. But Jrue Holiday is too indispensable, I think. And what did they need on this team, I think? An organizer, a defensive player, a tough guy at guard. And I thought they really lacked that. And so now we'll be all very curious in seeing what happens with the Bucks next and what specifically happens with Giannis. PJ says, scares me the Cavs bench beat the Pacers late in the season with starters. Yeah, I go with your last point. I realize that's a late game, meaningless somewhat, but still concerning. Totally agree with that. I don't completely rule it out, but I also recognize the context and all that. Recognize that, I mean, a lot of those guys probably playing for their jobs. A lot of those guys wanting to put on a show, wanting to maximize their additional playing time. It was the third stringers. It wasn't even necessarily their second stringers. And for the Pacers, yeah, you would have liked more focus. But one thing is true is this Pacer team over the last many years have struggled when they're playing back into the roster, when they're playing lesser opponents. When they're playing a great team like the Cavs, they come fully focused and determined. And so that's why I'm less concerned with all that. What's up, Brian? Blender and Chirp, welcome. Michael says the Fever posted their reaction to Halliburton's game winner seconds afterward. Yeah, there you go. That's what happens when you have many of the same people working on the same platforms, right? Fever people help out Pacers. And it's impressive / ridiculous, the number of people that are on their digital team. I mean, I'm talking 20 plus for those. It's like they put together like documentaries. They run all the social media. They've really leaned into that over the last couple of years, and I think it's worked out for them. It's just remarkable, the pure numbers. And I say that too, having been there. And my first job out of college was for Pacers.com. I couldn't even get them to have a podcast. I couldn't get them to do certain things. And now they are all in on so many digital factors. The one thing I still think they need is an online reporter. They don't have any of that, but they've kind of gone away from that. They have people write stories who aren't even there at practices and things like that. What else do we have? Bucks are so stupid. They guarded an ice cold Halliburton all the way on the perimeter, and he kept blowing by. Yeah, you could recognize that. I thought it was interesting that Halliburton was able to get by Giannis, but I think by that point, both players are worn down and tired. But Giannis is one of the best defenders in the league, and Halliburton got past him and got a layup off on a deciding play of the game. So there's that for Halliburton as well. That was a play you made. It was not just a 50 foot heave from half court or anything like that. He beat Giannis to the basket for the game-winning layup. Justin, any update on the Fever? Will take their final roster spot? No, not yet. Not yet. I appreciate the question. Just 3 days in, I want to see a couple preseason games. I would lean Michaela Timpson, just because of where they are at. I like Bree Hall, but I also know they have Sydney Colson as that third string guard. The challenge here is you just don't have player development roles, as I've talked about before. And for the first month or so of the season, expect them to only keep 11 players, not the full 12 right there. Giannis is a champion. You got to give him his due and don't poke the bear. Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. But you got to compete with him in talking about the players out there. But certainly what John Halliburton did, what are you doing? Just stay courtside. You don't go out on the court. And I don't like the taunting either. I assume that's what you're referencing. PJ's, anything on the Netflix comment that Carlisle made post-game? Is there a Netflix doc coming this season? Yeah, they're working on that where they follow the 5 players. I forget what it's called. I hadn't seen the first season, but Halliburton's part of that. So that's what they've been filming throughout this season is the starting 5. That's what it's called. So that's why there's cameras. Frustrating that they allow them around but don't want me around. That's interesting, certainly, considering my history, but that's a whole different subject I don't think we need to get into tonight. Dame getting hurt was bad for Dame, but good for Giannis. Giannis needed 2018 Dame. Wow. That's heavy right there. First of all, you don't want to see him go down. Yeah, I think it opens things up there, and it helped only because Dame was a shell of himself because of time off. As I documented last post-game show, I think he was like 1 of 8, 1 of 7, 1 of 6, and 0 for 2 in his last like 4 halves. So he was struggling to find an offensive rhythm. And yeah, Giannis and the Bucks wanted more capable player out there. But still, I mean, in closing time, you'd be happy to have Dame take one-time shots. No doubt about that. Eor Lingus says you cover for the Athletic. I get that confused with the Atlantic. No, I do not. I cover the Pacers for my own entity, Fieldhouse Files. I don't do anything with the ISC Sports Network anymore. That was during the pandemic. They gave me this screen to do daily videos with them, but it's so good I don't want to throw it away. But fieldhousefiles.com was where all my work is, the Fieldhouse Files podcast and this YouTube page. So any support you do goes directly to me. I'm a one-man band. I was the first hire, to your point, with the Athletic. That was back in 2018. Their first of about 6 hires. Dustin, who writes for the Pacers, about the Pacers for the Indy Star, he was the college basketball reporter, which he did so well because he did college basketball beat for like the 10, 15 years prior to that. But then they completely disrupted everything with the Athletic. They sold to venture capitalists, or the venture capitalists sold to the New York Times, I should say, which I don't blame them. But in doing so, it got rid and got away from the model we all loved, which was having a beat reporter cover every team. There's nobody covering the Pacers right now. It's not like, and for the Cavs, for example, I don't think they have a dedicated beat writer anymore as well. They got rid of Kelsey. Kelsey was the former beat writer. Joe Varden does a nice job from time to time, but he's certainly more national now. I miss the days when they had a writer for every team. I love the company and I love what they used to stand for. But now for reasons we all understand in sports media, is it's very much leaning into storyline. So I guarantee on the site is about the dust up post game rather than insight from the locker room and things like that. That's what I want to read about, and the pure beat writing. I love that stuff. That's what I'm all about, and what I continue to provide at fieldhousefiles.com. All right. What else do we got? Pacers should sign Trent Jr. With what money? They got to figure out how to sign Miles Turner because he's a free agent this summer. They don't have a ton of money under the luxury tax, so they're going to have to get creative. We'll have to probably make trades, and we'll probably have to we'll have to seriously consider going into the luxury tax. I don't think they will, or will certainly try not to. I think if they can hold off for one more year, but that might cost them some depth. They might have to trade away 2 of your depth players. PJ is interesting. I'll have to check that out. Haven't heard of that Netflix scene. You haven't? I've tweeted it out, used it and posted about it on my site about how Tyrese was included in the season 2 of the Netflix documentary. I think Sabonis was included in 1, if I remember right. Yeah, because they talked about his wine and such. Great catchy name, by the way, Fieldhouse Files. I'll check it out. Appreciate it. Yeah, something I thought of. It was originally a podcast name after it was just Pacers Podcast and Vigilant Sports Pacers Podcast. But I really wanted to get Pacers out of it. It's not owned by the team, and so I didn't feel right including that by any means. And so came up with that. Athletic actually helped me with that logo, by the way. And when they laid us all off, they let me keep that. Fortunately, let me keep my feed. I've got the longest running Pacers podcast, so I was glad to keep that feed and all my followers like you that are on board with me. Been doing it 10 years now, back to 2015. This is my 13th season on the Pacers beat, and I was a ball boy for the 10 years before that. So I go back to the Fieldhouse, hence Fieldhouse Files, since 2003, especially getting my start with the Indiana Fever there. Wilfredo, do I get any sleep at all covering Pacers and Fever? Man, not too much. Not as much as I want right now. I got Fever Media Day at 10 a.m. tomorrow. We'll be brewing a nice big pot of coffee coming up. That's why I actually haven't had a Fever story today either, because we went right from there to post my videos, to post my practice videos, to have this game and get right into it. So that's why it's slacking a little bit. Well, I got too much going on. Lindy, thank you. Appreciate the support. Your longest, appreciate it as well. MK, silver lining with the matchup against the Cavs should hopefully be within driving distance. And so some Pacer fans will make the trip. Fans makes some difference for sure, but that's a loud venue and they crank up the audio right there. It's amazing. They got, what is it? Pyrotechnics, the fireworks going off pregame. It is loud. When I covered games there, I always had my noise canceling headphones, but both venues are going to be loud, man. You're talking about the second round of the playoffs, a determined group. Kenny Atkinson's done a phenomenal job with the Cavaliers, certainly is in the conversation for Coach of the Year, which is, I think, the toughest award to give out right now. There are so many reasonable cases. Kenny's got to be right there. JB Bickerstaff's got to be right there. Mark Dagnall down in OKC's got to be there. Ime Udoka in Houston right there. Can't go wrong. I think I'd probably lean towards Kenny, but unfortunately, I don't have a vote, so I don't have to deal with that. Appreciate loyal viewer, man. Thanks for joining on, Eor Lang. I hope I'm saying this right. Eor Lingus, whatever. PJs, if they don't go into the tax this offseason to keep the team together, it's a big problem. One of the years, the front office has to go into the tax to keep a solid roster together. Well, it depends, too, about the market. I just don't think there will be a robust market in talking with agents. You're looking at Brooklyn. You're talking with San Antonio. Those two teams have free agents, have money to spend within their salary cap. How many of them are going to go after Miles? I'm not sure. And how much money will they want there? And neither one is ready to win a championship right now. So that will also got to factor in. If I'm Miles, as long as I get what I'm willing to take, and it's probably going to cost about $30 million per year. Let's be honest. He's been making $20 million this year. Remember, he got that advance payment, which made like 1 year $35 million, then $20 million, then $20 million. I think he's probably going to look anywhere from $28 to $32 million on average. You look down at OKC, Isaiah Hartenstein got about $28 million. That's probably my barometer going into this. Pacers were within like 100,000 of their luxury tax this season. Very smart not to get into it this year. If you can avoid it one more year, though, it's huge, because then once you get into it, pay a second year, the repeater tax is killer. It's killer. That's what happened with the Warriors, essentially, and some other teams out there, and why the Boston Celtics, in part, sold the team, because their luxury tax bill is going to be like $500 million. Remember, the Simons bought the team for $11 million. Back in 1983 or 81. Yeah, 83. So you got to be willing at some point to pay it, but you also want to be smart and strategic, PJs, into when you do it. Luke says, Pacer fan living in Cleveland here can confirm the piped in noise is so loud. I'll be in the building. There you go. A Pacer fan right there in Cleveland. What's your view on so many platforms covering sports while us regulars have to describe to so many channels in regards to following your favorite team? Yeah, it makes things difficult. And I'm glad you brought this up. All right. Because this is a significant issue for many reasons. Let's start with tonight's game. How at first I tweeted out, hey, the game's available. I don't know why, but it's available on YouTube TV, on NBA TV. Well, they corrected that for the second quarter, right? They fixed that, blacked it out, which is correct, even though we don't want that, right? They got to figure out a better way for distribution. And Adam Silver's acknowledged this. He was on a panel in the last couple of weeks and mentioned the regional rights, the local rights is a significant issue. One of the biggest issues surrounding the front office right now, because you want to remove that barrier to entry. You want to make sure your fans can watch. We're seeing the difference it makes from the Fever side of things, right? When 41 of 44 games on national TV, when on top of that, you have, I think it's 14 games on local TV with WTHR. The trouble is, and this is first of all what fans have to realize, is that what I've heard is the number one generator for revenue for the team locally each year is the regional sports contract. And so as that continues to go down, that cuts directly into one of their biggest income streams outside of national TV, which is obviously number one. So that's a big hit. But I really like what we've seen some of these newer owners do. I'm talking about Matt Ishby in Phoenix, Ryan Smith in Utah, which brings the rights in-house, and then they distribute them over a local network on their own app. And you got to do a reasonable price. You do. $20 per month is tough, especially when you compare it to the offerings, right? For Pacers, you might have 13, 14 games a month at max. Netflix is cheaper and there's billions of hours. I think if I were them, I would have set the price incredibly low last couple of years and worked my way up to like $14, $15 per month. I think fans should be willing to pay that. If you're watching 2 games a month, $15 is easily worth it. Parking is probably $15. I think 20, that number puts it out of your comfort zone, certainly. Now, in terms of the blackout, that's an NBA rule. That's not the Pacers to blame. That's not FanDuel Sports Network to blame. That's an NBA issue. If it's on NBA TV, they want to black it out so that you go to your local network. Then the issue becomes carriage deals. And that means Comcast and FanDuel Sports Network, AT&T and FanDuel, YouTube TV, Hulu Live TV, and the networks. And what we've seen is the majority, especially the streamers in particular, do not allow for, or not do not allow. Sorry, I got people texting me. The streamers don't want to pay for that high fee because they already are probably at their bubble of what they want to charge, which is now like $79 a month or $83 per month. If they agreed to a regional sports deal, they'll probably have to add another $10 to that. So that's one of their challenges. Now, for the fan, it sucks, right? You're at home. You want to be able to watch all games. That's in large part also what makes the NFL king. Not only do they play once a month, once a week, every Sunday just about, but it's also over the network. So you can use an antenna and watch every game. So there's that barrier to entry. So that becomes a challenge. And I wonder how many fans nationally and especially how many fans locally didn't get to watch this game. I had a couple friends I saw tweeted during the game, like, hey, can I watch this anywhere? Like, I'm excited. This is an incredible comeback. I want to watch it. And so that becomes a challenge. I will say during the year, they were offering a free trial and they were offering, it no longer matters, by the way. Local TV is done the rest of the way. But I would encourage you to make like $1 bet on FanDuel app or to sign up for a free trial. That'd be one way to get it for a short term. All right. That was a lot of thoughts on TV. I can get into it more, but if you want to talk about the game, I totally understand and happy about that as well. If you missed any part of this, you can watch the replay or listen to it. I do 2 times speed, but you can do that on the podcast apps after I get done wrapping this one up. Let's see. As much as I love him, kind of feels like Shepard is an odd man out. I could see him being a small piece of trades. He lost his way. Well, here's the thing. He doesn't make much money. He's still on his rookie contract. So he's not really the guy you're looking at, Greg. Really what you're looking at is an Obi Toppin, TJ McConnell, the guys that are making $11, $18 million per year. I don't think you do this, to be clear. But an Andrew Nembhard who starts making $18 million per year, if you do that, that would open up a slot certainly for Miles Turner. But Andrew's just too valuable. I don't think that would make any sense. But that is the type of thing you're considering if you're that Pacers front office looking ahead to next season. Yeah, the barrier to entry. Absolutely. Had a friend who started watching on NBA TV, then cut off after the first quarter. He was confused. I totally understand the confusion. I don't think anybody has explained it completely or clearly enough or made enough reminders. And a 6 p.m. tip off, I don't mind it, but it's highly unusual. And that's why you had a late arriving crowd because of 6 p.m. tip. I had a couple friends send me photos. The line, I guess, outside the Virginia Avenue garage was down a block or two. And then you got to deal with security, and those magtrometers are just the worst to deal with. We all know and accept the reasoning for security, but you get the backups of trying to get in. I know game one, I had a friend that took 25 minutes, missed tip off just because of the security line. So those are certainly some things, not just this team, but the leagues and sports in general have to streamline. Maybe you need more entrances, or you need better, quicker security devices. But things are tough. I know what was the most interesting, one of the most interesting things about this series was not only so many games on NBA TV, but more than that, all 5 games started at a different time. If you remember, they were the first playoff game, 1 o'clock. I think then you had a 6, a 7:30, an 8:30, and a 9:30, if I remember right. That's bonkers. You need to set. You'd want it to be as consistent as possible. That's why the Pacers ordinarily play 7 o'clock across all their games as much as they can. And then to wrap up on Shepherd, Greg, by the way, I think he's in a situation where they have so much depth that they call upon the guys as needed. So when you want more defense with length and size, you call on Jarris Walker, who gave a couple minutes at least each game guarding Giannis, for example. When you have more perimeter oriented, like in this upcoming series, I think you need and will go to Ben Shepherd more often when a guy gets in foul trouble, with Donovan Mitchell, with Strus, with Ty Jerome, and Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, all those guys. You're going to need more true guards. Now, I think the Pacers, for their current roster, actually match up well with this group because neither team has great wings, and that's where the Pacers' biggest weakness is. They have depth at center, they have depth at guard, but where they struggle is that 6'8" wing. I know I've talked about it enough. So I think that's advantageous versus playing the Celtics. What are the star players? Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Those are 2 wings. So that's in large part why I think the Pacers should be very happy and fortunate that they got the Cavs up next. Even though Cavs were really good at home, they had like an 18-game win streak. They were the best team in the Eastern Conference record-wise, second best record in the league overall. So this will not be an easy series if the Pacers get the upper hand at all. But they obviously do not have home court advantage. So starting Sunday with game one, they're going to try to steal one and take that home court advantage because it's just so advantageous. The Pacers, I think, have won 32 home games this season, including the postseason. I think it's 32, might be 33. That's a monster number. Really good. And I would almost add 2 more to that. That Lakers loss, that was awful. And then I think it was to the Magic, maybe second to last game where things are kind of in hand. That was a really bad one. So realistically, about 35 home wins this season. All right. I don't know how much longer I need to go here, but I got a lot of people in here. So I hate to end it prematurely. It's just past 11 o'clock as we are doing this live on YouTube, but more than 60 viewers on here joining me. And remember, I'll post it again to the Fieldhouse Files podcast as well. PJs, wish FanDuel could keep carrying games further into the playoffs without cable. I pay for the app. There you go. See, you're on the other side of it. You're happy to pay for the local announcers and your normal crew. And it seems like the app has had a good experience this year, by the way. That was the challenge that first year, is I heard too many times where it might be a different feed altogether. It might be like softball or hockey during the Pacer game, or it might just be a bad feed. It was freezing in the app. And that is, again, why I charge a low fee kind of during the developmental phase. Once you get the quirks worked out and mastered it, then you feel better charging for a more streamlined, better performing app, by the way. Ryan, when the game ended, the image of Reggie doing the choke gesture popped up into your head. Yeah, I get that. I think the Pacers went out and won this one. Certainly Gary Trent Jr., man, he's going to feel like he choked. Throwing it away, great interception there by Nembhard. And then he just, the second time down, he just kind of bobbled the ball and it went over the sideline. That's just a killer, man. That is tough. That one he definitely choked away. But also the Pacers went out and got it to their credit. So that was really well done by the Pacers, hanging in, staying in it. Those are things your coach preaches. It's so hard to do, though, in the moment, right? I know all of us at some point, we're already thinking ahead to Friday and what time game 6 might be, for example. Granny Danger, where you been, man? We've missed you. Almost 50 minutes gone by here. Good to have you on board here, though. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining in here. Greg, thanks for joining. I see. Good to have you on here tonight. Underrated thing I haven't seen mentioned, Nimhard deep three in the steal late. Yeah, I mentioned it on my story at Fieldhouse Files at the buzzer. I briefly touched on it, the steal earlier on and just a moment ago. But yeah, I think it was 17 seconds left. And he got that, Nimhard steal from Trent Jr., threw it ahead, got that and one. And then you had that three-pointer, and it was not an easy one from straight on. I think they officially recorded it as 33 feet. But, man, he's a cold killer when it comes to big game shots. He loved them. I already wrote about that at fieldhousefiles.com as he loves those big moments. And in a game when the Pacers weren't particularly shooting well from three-point land, they were 36%, ended up with 12 made threes in the game. I think 9 maybe in the fourth quarter or in the up to through regulation. He had the big sack there to take the shot and knock it down with great confidence. And that's exactly why you want from him. He's just so indispensable for this Pacers roster. We know what he does defensively, but defense is something he's grown into. He was more of a three-point shooter and an offensive player. And I think he's so strong and tough around the basket. There was that one time on the left block there where he moved Giannis, who's huge, moved Giannis and then just missed the shot. But that really impressed me there, Granny, and what he continues to do. I liked what we saw from Turner, to reiterate, if people are joining late. Nesmith throughout the series has just been underrated and been so tough, so physical. He's a guy that's dealing with a bad back, and you know who's going to benefit most from this 4-day between games? It's Aaron Nesmith, number one, and I think Mathurin, number two. Probably Halliburton in there as well. Remember, at this time of year is when Halliburton's hamstring and groin area was starting to worsen, and he was able to play in that New York series, but not able to finish off the playoffs, not able to play in the final two games against the Boston Celtics. I just meant by the time Dame got to Milwaukee, it was too late, and if he didn't get hurt, they'd keep running it back. I know I got you. I know what you're saying. And much earlier, I think you asked about Dame and Giannis and that pairing. I don't like that pairing, but I think the Bucks were desperate. They felt they had to do something, so they ultimately did, to try to both keep Giannis happy and to re-sign and see if they could make another run at it after their 2021 championship in Milwaukee, because since then things have not been good. The Pacers or the Bucks have really struggled. Giannis didn't play in the postseason last year. Dame did, but wasn't completely healthy. And then I still don't know why. Maybe Dame pushed for it, but I still don't know why Dame played in this postseason. Hadn't played for a month, dealing with a blood clot, which is significant off the court injury, and he hadn't played. And so he has no game rhythm, game shape. But I also realize, look, he's almost 35. He realizes these playoff games and these big moments are coming less at him. And so he's got to make the most of them. But, man, that is so difficult. A big ask for him and for this team. How many people would you say left the game early? I have no clue. Pacers don't let me in for this whole year. And so that's why I'm doing this here at home. So I was not at the game, and I did not see the crowd leaving. So I have no good estimate there. I do know it was a sellout crowd, 17,274 with the gold out. I hope we can get past and move past this theme of yes, sirs after this season. It's terrible, but I know some people like it. Also, why are we criticizing people for not wearing their T-shirts? I know if I pay for a ticket to go to a game, I'm going to wear what I want. Now, maybe that's that shirt. Maybe it's a yellow. What the Pacers need to do, free advice here, what they need to do as they lean into these icy white city uniforms is do like the colleges and declare it a whiteout. You could give them a white T-shirt, but if you don't, just say, hey, wear white. Make it a whiteout. That's what I'd all be for. So there you go. Hey, Eorlingus, shout out to you for the support, man. That's big time. I love that, man. Thanks for help making this possible, too. It's fans like you who subscribe to my work here on YouTube, over on fieldhousefiles.com. That's primarily where my work is. So definitely check that out if you're a Pacers or Fever fan. But big ups to you. Appreciate the support. That means a lot to me for sure. No, you probably won't give the info, Scott, but why aren't I letting the media contingent? I'd tell you if I knew. That's the biggest issue. The Pacers have not told me, will not give me a reason, will not reach out to me. It's very bizarre. Love the Fever. They are fantastic. We have media day tomorrow. Talked to the team president about the transition from the man ants to the boom. I have no ill feelings towards anything with them, but for whatever reason, somebody there is keeping me out, and nobody will tell me why. That's the most frustrating thing, right? Because my biggest thing is I'm here for you. I'm here for fans to cover the team, right? I'm your eyes and ears, and then I've done it for quite a while. I'm the longest guy on the beat. It's my 13th year, and I think I do things differently, and I think I see things that other people don't. I go about it and get different interviews that people aren't interested in, other people aren't interested in reporting on. That's the stuff I love, like Matt Asen, Pacer guy. Access or not, that's certainly a story I'm going to do. But yeah, I've been around the field house since 2003. I used to work for the team. Um, yeah, and been on the beat since 2012, but for a reason I don't know, they continue to keep me out. I wish I would get an answer to that, especially as we move to the second round of the playoffs. But whatever I do, I'm all in. So right now it's Fever especially. So I'm going to Iowa City this upcoming weekend after covering Saturday's game here at home. I'll be there to cover Caitlin's return at Iowa City, go up to West Des Moines, see where she's from, those certain things. So that will be a lot of fun. All right, we've gone almost an hour, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Pacers get the win tonight, 119-118. It took an overtime period. They were 5-1 in overtime sessions during the regular season. They added one more win to the total here this year with tonight's win, 6-1 overall. Tyrese Halliburton didn't have a great offensive game, but he said he didn't get discouraged. He stayed at it, kept a positive attitude. His teammates were encouraging him, and I think that says a lot about this Indiana Pacers team as a whole and the depth and what they rely on. The defense needed to up itself, I thought, in the latter stages of the game, especially with Gary Trent Jr. I think if I was out there, he's not getting that third three off. I'm making sure he feels me. I might foul him. That's kind of your old school basketball. But he is not getting that third shot off comfortably. And then he made 4 threes in a row in overtime. But then Gary Trent Jr., who played well, ultimately had the issue of turning it over on back-to-back possessions, which was costly, very, very costly for the Milwaukee Bucks. Wow. Quimenio, appreciate the support. I hope I said that right. I feel like I butchered that. But thank you so much for the support here on YouTube. If you haven't done so already, subscribe at fieldhousefiles.com as well. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's on to round 2 for this Pacers team against the Cleveland Cavaliers. If you missed it earlier, game 1 will be Sunday over in Cleveland at what was Rocket Mortgage Arena. It's changed names about 4 or 5 times. It originally was the Q. That's kind of how we know it. But game 1 coming up on Sunday. Thanks again to everyone who has joined me on all 5 of these post-game shows. We'll continue them on coming up starting Sunday with round 2 as well. Again, my work's at fieldhousefiles.com, my YouTube page, and the Fieldhouse Files podcast. Maybe I'll do another live about Pacers heading into Sunday's game. I certainly will, coming up for the Fever. Thanks to everybody for your support, for joining me in the chat. And as usual, I will talk to you all again soon. Have a great night, everyone.